Hi everyone, welcome to my video about gel printing. So I've been doing a lot of gel printing lately. This video is about a technique where you use objects to print onto a plate and then you transfer that image onto a piece of paper. So I've gathered all these different objects from my new yard and put them on this table here in the shed, and I'm going to show you how I do some of this gel printing. There's another kind of gel printing where you can transfer images from magazines and other things, but in this video I'm just going to be using these three-dimensional objects, not images from a magazine. So the first thing I'm going to be printing is this little mushroom, and I'm just using the smallest gel plate I think that's out there. You can get this at an art supply store or craft store. And I'm going to be using acrylic paint. I'm using this Brea Reese heavy body acrylic paint. I think any acrylic paint that's got a heavier body will work pretty well. And I'm just using a brayer to get a nice even layer of the acrylic paint on there. And then you just take the object that you want to print and you place it directly onto the plate itself. And then for every print, you're kind of making two. The first one is just to get all the ink off the surrounding part. So here I'm just getting the ink around the mushroom off. The mushroom's pretty wet, so it went through the paper. That's not obviously something that happens every time. And then it removes all the ink around the mushroom so that when you place the paper you actually want to print on onto the plate, just the image of the mushroom will be transferred. So the ink was a little dry here. Sometimes people will actually let the ink dry on purpose, because you can do this other technique where you let the ink dry on purpose and then you roll another layer of a different color on there. So here I'm going to put green paint on there and spray that over. It kind of feels like you're going to mess up the image of the mushroom there, but you're not. And I guess the wet paint maybe adheres to the dry paint. I don't really know exactly how it works. But then when you make this print, it's going to be two colored with a green background, and that dried mushroom print is going to come right off. So it's pretty cool. So that's actually the basics of gel printing. Wash, rinse, repeat. You just put the paint on there in a nice layer, put your object on there, make the negative, maybe don't use wet mushrooms, and then put the paper you actually want to print on there, and there it is. And the negatives actually end up being kind of cool too, and I've been using those trying to get some layering effect for some of the projects I've been working on. And you don't have to use fancy paper, you can just use printer paper. Here I'm using these cards I got at the discount store because I kind of like them, but they're kind of a little bit too cutesy bootsy, so I'm doing that. And you can see that I'm using different types of paper to get the ink off and different angles because sometimes the object is too thick. Also, I just snuck in a mono print there where you just take the object itself and place it onto the piece of paper. Hopefully I'm not going too fast, but this video would be real boring if it weren't sped up. So I'm getting a kick out of doing these mushrooms, but you can see sometimes they're too thick, so I have to break the stem off, and there I just put the stem beneath the mushroom head and printed it that way, which I think is kind of cool. So next I'm going to use this glow-in-the-dark paint that I found at Walmart, and this is an example of how thinner paints aren't really going to work as well. I even tried, you'll see, to put more paint on there, and it just didn't really end up making a very clear print. But I did take it into the closet later and turn out the lights, and it did glow a little bit, so it kind of worked. It just needs to be thicker. And then now I'm going to do this mimosa, which I think actually kind of dried up in the time that I started, so I needed to go back and get more. and I'm just spraying stuff all over the place. And this time, instead of using my hand to press it down, I even use the roller a little bit to try and get it to press down more. So you can do that too. It's kind of fun to make a mess and not clean your brayer at all, and just get some like layered stuff everywhere. And for this next part, I'm going to be using the bigger plate, which I have to say is a lot of fun. Although everything this does, the little one does too, um, but you just can't print as big of things on there. So it's the same exact technique, of course. I'm going to use this big leaf here. I feel like it's a little harder to get the paint even, and you need bigger paper to print on. I even left the bottom there for an effect. Did a little mono print on top of that. But I just think it's really cool to make these big prints and to find stuff all over the place where you're like, oh wow, I really want to make a giant print of that. It's like a dream to maybe print bigger and bigger and bigger. So you can use the same object, the same mushroom, and the same leaf like a bunch of times. You can also use textured paper like I did just then, and it's going to leave textured stuff like in the background, kind of like some dots there. So I really liked the dots and decided I was going to dry it off on purpose this time. You can see me, I sort of like fanned it. And then I went and found some more nature objects, I guess, so that the ink would dry. And then I'm going to put another layer on top of that so that it makes one of those double colored prints there. Wow, apparently I was foraging for quite some time. So I put this silver stuff on there. You can see I'm still nervous about like ruining the image underneath, so I kind of tried to like roll it over the image itself. And then when you peel that off, you're gonna have, you can see two colors there. You also can just throw some paper down to get extra ink off. Sometimes you can even get two prints. So the whole process can be really addicting actually, and it's just really fun to make a big old mess of things. So here I'm going to do just like basically what you've seen, but kind of throw in some random things there. Like I rolled onto that leaf for no good reason and then just sort of slapped it there and it made a mono print. And then you can use two pieces of paper to get the ink off. So it makes that weird strip on one and then the cut off image on the other. And this time I even mono printed on the back side of that print. So yeah, you can do basically all kinds of things. And like I said, just make a big old mess. And next up I'm going to do these thicker flowers. So doing thicker objects or objects where things are very close together can be kind of a challenge. So you'll see I laid it down, and then when I peeled it off, there was still a lot of ink surrounding the image. So I tried to get a thinner paper on there and get more ink off. And then when the print came out, it just didn't come out that clear because there was all that ink around it. And I thought, oh, I'll just press this on here and do a mono print, and that actually kind of looked cooler in that case. Here's another giant object, kind of not as thick though, so I think it worked a little bit better than the thicker flower, orange flower that I just did there. And of course you can put more than one color on your plate. I feel like the scrapbook crafty ladies really love to do that. I'm not a huge fan of that, and this print isn't one of my favorites because I did that, but it's still a pretty cool print, and it was fun to make. And I think I will use it in like a layered type project. And just to sort of have fun and try and challenge myself, I wanted to print something even thicker than all of that stuff. And this plant had berries on it, so I just picked some of the berries off, and you can see that it kind of left a lot of ink there, but the berries showed up, and I was pretty excited about that. So that was pretty cool. And then for my last print, I wanted to print something really thick, so I did this horseshoe. I just ended up balling the newspaper up and using it to soak up all the ink around the horseshoe, and lo and behold, it actually worked. So that was pretty cool. Well, thanks everyone for watching this video. It's definitely not very high tech. In the end here, you can see me climb up on the stool and get my phone out of the chicken wire loop that is hanging from the suspended ceiling. There it is. That's my high-tech filming equipment. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, let me know. Hopefully I'll be making some more videos soon.